Hello, this is Lisa LaRose here on Connect to Love on PRN-FM, and it's an absolutely beautiful day, even though it's a little bit overcast, and I would like to welcome my wonderful co-host, Michael J. Russ. Welcome, Michael. Welcome to you.
Hello to you. It's an awesome day. Beautiful down here. It's beautiful blue skies, a little breezy, but beautiful blue skies. Gorgeous 71. I can't beat it.
Well, we're going to be in the 70s next week, so I'm grateful for every day, no matter what it is. And we have a full moon tomorrow, and all kinds of amazing things. I think they call it the harvest moon, and we have had lots and lots of blessings with meteors and all kinds of different stuff. October has been a jam-packed month, astronomically and astrologically. So. Yes.
You have an asteroid that came through once every 85 or 88,000 years. It makes an appearance, so it's gone now. 2 days of appearances. I couldn't get it down here, though. I went to the beach, and I still couldn't see it.
No, I wasn't able to see it either, although we did have amazing auroras. And there's a gentleman who, I don't know what part of the world that they were in, but the auroras that he captured were unbelievable. And he's like a little kid out in the middle of nowhere and laying on his truck hood and screaming in ecstatic bliss. I've waited my whole life for this. I've waited my whole life to see sights like this. And I thought, wow.
I learned something, though, about auroras, that if you want to see the fullness of the aurora, you have to videotape it.
Oh, yeah.
You cannot see it with your naked eye. It's pretty interesting. You can see a lot of it, but not the best parts of it. You have to photograph it. And the photograph, like your video or your camera, will capture the fullness of the spectrum. It's pretty interesting. I learned that up in Alaska in May during
It's true, though. I had somebody say that. They said, I couldn't see the aurora, but then I used my cell phone and I could see it. And I think that
you can watch it right through the lens of your cell phone without even taking a picture. It's interesting. It's very, very cool. But it came down to Texas. Didn't come here, but we, as Pam Gregory was talking about, there were like 5 or 6 solar events that occurred, and that allowed, like they did in May, except there were more of them, and they were a little more intense. So it's interesting. I'll catch it at some particular point. Be in the right place at the right time. I guess it wasn't meant to be right now.
You're right, but isn't it interesting, Michael? Because you and I had a brief chat before the show, and I'm sitting there thinking to myself, you can't see the auroras unless you use your phone. You can't see the full amount, and all I could think of was that's what perspective is like. It takes sometimes to see through a different lens, to look at a different perspective of something. And the power in that perspective, when you can shift something, is really incredible. And I mean, what a great metaphor. If just by shifting your perspective, what more beauty you can see. I love that. I do. I really love that. And a lot of times, I had so many different thought leaders that inspired me. Wayne Dyer, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. I think that has become an embodiment for me in my life, that no matter what challenge comes up, I try to shift that into something else. So just shifting a perspective in a negative situation and seeing it as an opportunity for growth rather than a setback is really powerful. And I know that you have been doing a lot of what I've been doing, and cleaning things out and refining and finding what's really necessary, the things that you can let go of. And that really has a lot to do with perspective, too. The things that we think we need to hold on to is really pretty profound. I have been going through a lot of different things and thinking, oh yeah, somebody else can use that, and just put it in a bag and drop it off the next time that I'm out. Somebody can have it at Goodwill. And no sooner than I did that than a friend of mine, I said, do you want to go grab a bite to eat? She said, yeah, I have a whole bunch of clothes for you. Which I had to laugh. I'm like, well, these ones just went out. Okay, these ones are new for me. And she's a big designer girl, so she's like, oh, this is XYZ, and then this is this and this. And she had this Escada jacket, and she said, I've had this for years, and I put it on, and it just won't fit. And I tried to give it to my sister, and she didn't want it, but it's way too nice to just get rid of.
Yeah, really.
So I said to her, I said, well, thank you. I put it, she goes, go in the bathroom, go try it on. And I said, okay. I did that and did a little fashion show for her. And then I ended up getting a text message from her yesterday, and here she found another Escada jacket in almost identical that fit her like a glove. And she said, it fits me like a glove. And I said, you look gorgeous. So it's so interesting, the things that we think we have to hold on to, that when we release it, the universe has something even better in mind to drop at our doorstep, like a jacket that fits.
Always the case. When we're in fear to let something go, it again inhibits new things from coming into our lives. It's the same thing happens with thoughts. We're not going to get new thoughts, new inspirations until we get rid of ones that are no longer relevant for us. And this is that time frame, at least according to Pam Gregory, astrologically. We're in a point in time in our universal development that and planetary cycles that this is the time to clear out the old and embrace to make room for what we really want. We hang on to things, we hang on to old memories, we keep investing in them, in those older thoughts, and they're preventing us from seeing or manifesting and thinking different thoughts. In thoughts that really are relevant for us right now, because change is not people. Change is not easy for many people. It's not easy, and getting rid of something is akin to change. Getting rid of what's irrelevant to you is change. It means that you're letting something go that you had invested energy in before, and you don't really want to let it go. I had to make some hard choices this weekend when I moved my storage set. Am I really going to need this anymore? I've got. It's part of it is the age. I invested in a lot of CDs for my books, right? Audiobooks. And I had these jackets or sleeves because I had to get, you had to make 5,000 sleeves, although you're only going to get, 2,000 CDs or 3,000 CDs, whatever. And so you got a better price on buying 5,000 sleeves. So for future CDs, if I wanted to get some made, I had the sleeves. Well, we're in a digital age now. Now people, you deliver books by digital download. That's not the case. That wasn't the case 20 years ago. And so I just literally felt so free dumping the sleeves that I was no longer going to use. They were heavy, they were bulky, and I said, all these sleeves, bye. See you later. They're going to recycling bin. And it was fun to it's liberating. It's liberating to get rid of things, to go like for those of you out there, listeners who have a garage that's full of stuff, just go out there and take one wall at a time and start looking and asking yourself, hey, do I really need this? Could somebody else use this? Could I recycle this in some way? If I haven't used it in a year or two, it really doesn't have any relevance for me. Now, if you're a camper and you've got a bunch of camping equipment and you haven't been able to camp for a couple of years, that's a little bit different because that's something that you could decide to do again and take up, and you've got the equipment and you don't have to repurchase it. But I'm talking about things that you have sitting out there that you haven't used, that maybe came from a previous property and you couldn't let them go at the time, but you've brought them and they didn't fit in your current property, but you still have them. why not share those? Take them to Goodwill or some other resource, Habitat for Humanity's store, right? And let somebody else, let that energy that you put into them benefit someone else. Because all inanimate objects have energy. You have energy in things. And if you're going through a breakup or a divorce or whatever it is, and you've gotten something that you split from somebody else, that energy of that negative energy that you infused into your environment may still be in that item, and which is the reason why when you look at it, what does it remind you of? It reminds you of something negative in your life, something you attached negativity to. And you just have to let it go. Let that energy go. Let someone else infuse it with new energy for them, because it's something that they've been looking for, or something that fits and is relevant for them right now in this time in their lives. So there's all kinds of ways. There's all kinds of ways.
Yep. Exactly. And one of my favorite places that people repurpose things is bookstores. I find so many unique and amazing out-of-print books in used bookstores. I mean, it's one of my favorite things to do. So when you said that about your CDs, I actually had to chuckle because, yes, there are digital downloads, and, yes, people have digital reading material. However, I just saw online that, and the New York Times, I was so curious about the article. They were saying how bookstores now are booming, that 300 new bookstores have, like in New York alone, opened up in the past year.
Independent bookstores.
All different kinds, yeah. And in London, especially, they were taught, and this I thought was really fabulous because you and I always talk about connection. And I guess one of the bookstores that opened up in London is just jam-packed. They showed some pictures of it, and they said people want to go back to sitting in a bookstore and having a cup of tea and seeing other readers and communing with the books. And it was always one of my favorite things to do. And I remember when the first Kindle came out and said, oh, well, you'd better get one because there's not going to be any books anymore. And I thought, no, it's just not going to happen. I changed my perspective. I was like, Bill, that's your perspective. I didn't go into despair like, oh, my goodness, what's going to happen to all the books? I saw it as a different thing. And I love the fact that people are putting down their phones and picking up books and sitting in these bookstores, this fabulous bookstore in London, and just reading and communing and building a community again.
Yeah, I love that idea. It is, it's this old rubber band theory. You stretch it all the way out one way and it snaps back completely the other way. And I've seen the same thing happen with Polaroid cameras.
For sure.
Now a new generation comes up and they discover something that had maybe skipped a generation. Kodak film, Fuji films making a comeback. People are buying disposable cameras that waterproof cameras when they go on vacation. They go into the water, they snap pictures, they go have the film developed, as opposed to taking a digital film underwater, a digital picture of your phone in a plastic bag or whatever, if it's a waterproof case. That happened. And, I mean, there's other areas where things that used to be, I'd say relevant for us at the time because there was nothing different, right? I mean, bookstores. Mm-hmm. I remember, literally, I've been here in Panama City Beach for 21 years this month. And when I got here, it was Books A Million, Barnes & Noble was across the street, and a shopping center, and there was one other bookstore I can't think of right now.
Borders, maybe?
Yeah, Borders, right.
Mm-hmm.
Borders Books went under. And then the Barnes & Noble in one shopping center 5 minutes away, it closed. It closed the store, right? And guess what came back? Across the street in the new shopping center, just this summer, Barnes & Noble comes back.
Fantastic. That's exciting.
I mean, it's across the street from each other. I mean, part of it was rent, because the rent was exorbitantly expensive where they were the first time, and it was a lot less expensive elsewhere. But the fact that and what has also changed is the number of tourists in 21 years, that visitors to this area has doubled and almost tripled. So you had less people 21 years ago than you have today. You get 3 times as many people, and they've got less rent, and they pop right back into where Pier Imports was. So you get these cycles with things.
Mm-hmm.
Things go out of favor, and then they come back into favor with a different generation, because I'm happy to say digital isn't always best. I've never had a Kindle,
right,
and I never wanted.
I haven't either.
I don't like reading on that screen. I really don't. I don't like reading on that and having to turn the page. And I bought ebooks. I just don't like to read them on my phone, and I don't like to read them on my computer. Having an actual book that you can touch and feel, the pages, the paper.
And write in, too, if you want to write notes, right?
Right. You can highlighter, man. I've got books I've highlighted the heck out of. Passages that I really enjoy. I mean, a lot of them
so you're the one whose books I find in the bookstore with all the highlights in them. Which I always have to laugh about, because that would be me peeking in on your perspective of what you felt was important in that book.
Right.
Isn't that funny?
It's
absolutely
true. That is absolutely true. You give somebody else gets a peek into what it is. I mean, I started doing that. That's the way I used to study. That's the way I was taught to study in college. You have the book of things that you really wanted to remember. You highlighted, and then I started in books, a lot of self-help books when I was going through my period of self-awareness in the late mid-'80s to early '90s. I would, grab all the books that I would buy, the Four Agreements and all these other things, and I would
and
Deepak Chopra's books, and I would go, gosh, that's absolutely brilliant. I want to remember that, and I would highlight it in the book, and when I highlighted it, it gave it more intensity, right? And I could go back through and just catch a page or two and see something that I really enjoy. And now I'm using my own journals, right? These journals that I created. Again, 20 plus years ago. I just moved 3 boxes of them, the blank journals. I just keep using them. I use them, and I write in them. I've got one in my lap right now that I take notes when we're talking here and doing the show. Another one for channelings, to transcribe channelings. Another one for creative ideas, and I absolutely love it. I bought this cool pen up in Alaska. This is going to be really funny to you, because I walked into this store in Chilkat Bay, which is in Haines, Alaska, and a little town, not more than you could walk the town, basically, a couple of streets. And we went into this really cool, eclectic store that carried a lot of creative things from artists in the area. And the owner of the store, he and his wife, were there, and she was behind the counter, and he was over because he made pens. He made writing. I love writing utensils. I have been a collector of different unique writing utensils for some period of time, and he had this pen, and he goes, check out this pen. And I'm going like, let me see what this looks like. Wow, what is that? He goes, it's a pen that is infused with dried moose poop.
Oh my gosh! Oh my goodness!
I'm looking at this, going, "What is that stuff in there that you've got?" He says it's moose poop, and I said, "What are you kidding me?" He goes, "Yeah, that's what it is." So he takes this moose poop and he coats it with acrylic, dries it, coats it with acrylic, and then what he does is he grinds it down he puts it in this acrylic thing, and then he grinds it down into a shape. And so it's got this green, clear, and there's mouthful. I'll have to send you a picture of it.
Oh my goodness!
Absolutely insane, but it's my favorite pen. I came back and I bought I think 20 refills for the darn thing. It just writes so smoothly in my journal. It's awesome. It's got great weight and it's just amazing.
Isn't that funny?
Yeah, I love it.
Who would think that somebody could again, here you go, Michael. It's changed their perspective on something that most people would just walk over and see as an annoyance.
Yeah.
And he turned it into something really positive. Not only positive, but it helps them pay the bills.
Yeah,
Those things that people...
It's just a very unique work. And
isn't that great?
Here's the thing.
There's magic in that. There is magic in that.
I look at everything in my office, and I've got a lot of different things, little nicky-nackies and stuff. I can look at each one of them and tell the story about why it's there, why I got it, where did I get it, why did I buy it, and it's really unique. And I've got stuff here that's from back in the 60s. You know, when we were in Taiwan, I have a piece there. I've got a mask from Cirque du Soleil that I picked up in California when I went to a show in L.A. I bought this really cool real feather mask. It covers half your face, and it's really neat. And I love the thing. And sometimes I wear it on Halloween when I answer the door.
Oh, how nice.
The kids.
How nice.
See it and like, but you know what?
You're going to have to put it on and take a picture and post it on Instagram.
Yeah,
so everybody can see your mask.
Good idea. I haven't, that's not something I would think about because I didn't grow up in that era. But good idea. I'll have to.
Yeah, I have one that is actually carved. It's a carved mask, and it looks like a cat. And the woman forms it to your face, and so literally when I put it on, the only thing you can see are my lips, and it's the most surreal thing. It's the closest thing that I'll ever get to being a cat in this lifetime. But talk about perspective, because when people look at you, like if your tongue sticks out, like you stick your tongue out, because it's molded to your face. It's not just something that's just sitting on there. It's really a work of art. They are not inexpensive.
Oh yeah.
But I when I put one on, I'm like, oh my goodness, I love this cat. And I looked at my eyes because it just forms right around the orbital part of the eye, and so you can see your eyeballs just as if you were right in that shape shifting thing. You know?
So neat. Yeah, I mean, I always think of it harkens back to there's still a festival that goes on in Venice where everybody dresses.
Oh yes, I love that.
Yeah, the garb, and they have the masks, and it's a ball kind of situation. I always thought to myself, it would be fun to go to that, to go experience that week that they have, that celebration. There's certain things you think about around the world, and perspective is, the word is huge. In our lives, we're talking about different things that are relevant and irrelevant in our lives, and the reason it becomes, in my view, something that becomes irrelevant is because we've shifted our perspective about our lives, and it no longer fits a perspective of who we are and where we're going and what we're doing, and it's just part of a different era in our lives. And I see life as a compilation of different chapters, right? And I've had so many chapters, and I've got a little something that I've held on to from every chapter. I've got some pillows that I just moved from one storage shed to another. I bought the pillows in 1978. I bought the pillows because
that's impressive. You still have them.
Yeah, it was part of a sort of a little comfy, simple couch setup. And although I haven't used them in a while, I brought one to the house just recently after 20 years being here, and I used it to. We have an upstairs, downstairs, and we have a cat, and we've got friends that come over that have dogs, right? So they'd bring the dogs over, and I would use this large pillow to block the stairwell, so the cat would have the complete stairs to themselves, and with their food, and they could hang out and look over down at the dogs if they wanted to, but the dogs couldn't come up. And I moved the pillow, and all I had to do was just touch the pillow, and all the thoughts and memories of where I bought it, where I used it, the apartment I was in. I was going to San Jose State at the time and working as I had a private DJ business, and it's neat. I smiled, and there was so much joy in just knowing that I had this pillow, that I was touching it, and it was something that was a part of my life way back then. It still has relevance because I did use it in the 80s when I had back issues. I would lay down on the floor. Oh, yeah. This thing is a really thick pillow, about a foot and a half dense. And I actually used it on the floor, kick my knees up over it, my calves over it, and my back would lay flat on the floor. And I could basically, that's how I spent every evening after I came home from work. I wouldn't sit in a chair. I eat in a chair, but then I would lay down on the floor because I needed to have, and I slept. I put this thing in the bed with me, and I slept. That's the way I had to sleep, so that my back was totally flat, because I would move around and stuff, and I had a herniated disc. And that one pillow, saved me a lot of pain, a lot of grief, in my life, and it was pretty amazing. So it's had several lives of it.
Yeah. Well, even when you talk about that, Michael, I think about it when you have something like that happen, when you have to have surgery or you have an accident, it gives you sort of an opportunity for self-discovery, because you are thinking like, oh my gosh, like I'm only X amount of years old. Why did this happen to me? What's going on? Why did I have to have this happen? Instead, you shift and you say, what can I learn about myself from this experience? You had a connection with that pillow, and it was bringing back reminders of that time in your life. And it's nurturing. It's nurturing to the heart. And just changing that little perspective, I'm sure, elevated your vibration and helped you in healing quicker. And that's really how things work. And I wanted to comment, because when you said you were talking about chapters in your life, and I just got this visual, whether your guide or my guide who put it in my head, but all I could see was, again, something that we were told was not going to be needed anymore, which were albums, LPs.
There you
go. That, like when I went to Target the other day, there weren't any CDs. There's a whole plethora of albums. They're all coming back to vinyl. And so what was the favorite thing to do when you would put a record on the player and listen to the vinyl? There were grooves in that record,
right?
And when you picked up the needle, you could go right, and almost, if it was, especially with a favorite album, you would know exactly where to place that needle. You would just let it play and let it play. And it's kind of like that in life. You've got this groove, and it may be here for a reason, like your backs or your pillow. Your pillow's lasted more than just a season, lifetime. Who knows? Maybe you'll have it until maybe it'll be with you in those last chapters of your life on this earth plane. I don't know. It's so phenomenal, I think, when you have things that are in your life like that, because it does help you anchor into a time in your life where your vibration was higher, you weren't in any pain, and you're attracting a healthier, more aligned outcome for your future, in my opinion.
Here's the other kicker. You're going to really love this. It's interesting that you brought up albums, because I have all the albums I used as a DJ back from 76 to 1980, I still own.
Fabulous. How many albums is that? I just have to ask. Oh, you probably don't even know.
3 melon crates full. Remember the melon crates? They were perfect. They were the perfect size for an album, right? These old melon fruit crates. I have 3 crates of them. 3 crates of them. That's probably a couple of hundred, easily 200-300 albums. And I just this weekend moved a box of 45s. I moved a box of 45s and the record player that I used to play. I moved that this weekend too. I had the record player from, 50 years ago. Techniques.
Oh boy! So we know where to come this summer to, hear you spin music. That's awesome.
A subwoofer and the whole 9 yards. And I'm like, I have this stuff. I could if I bought an amplifier. I have the cassette players. I got a dual cassette player. A whole setup for an audiophile system. I'm going. I couldn't do it here. I don't have the room, but it's like I have to go back to California to get all the records, but because I have to physically drive them out here. They're so heavy. Those crates are humongously heavy. But to know I have all of those records that I used to use, and it's amazing. You know, now DJs don't use turntables. They use these things that you spin CDs on, you know, compact discs. And I'm like, no, that's not the way you do this. Professional clubs have some of them have record players, but a record's good. Here's the interesting thing too. My girlfriend's granddaughter, she bought her a record player last Christmas.
Nice.
She was 10 last Christmas at Lexi's, and so she's got a record player, and she also bought her 3 albums, and since then she's gotten Taylor Swift albums and other albums that are being made by present day artists, and she just loves playing them in her room. It's like a new discovery. How many generations did records just? I mean, they've always existed. The plants have always made records, but it took the latest generation, I don't know, with Gen Z or whatever, to be able to rediscover something. Now, here's the interesting part, because we can ourselves make rediscoveries, you know, have rediscoveries, and the beauty of that is that you can bring new life to something, to an old idea, to some aspect of yourself. You can shed your skin, so to speak, and give new life to something. And that's the beauty of that, is that you're giving new energy to something that had energy that was sort of despondent. You know, you can do that, and it's fun to do. And again, that represents a new chapter. And I just had some friends that started a new chapter. They left here a week ago Monday, going to live in Portugal, you know, and missed them a lot. However, I'm so happy for them, because it took them 6 months to get to that point, and they moved. They went over there. They rented a house. They're setting up shop with their 2 dogs, and you know, it made me think that a lot of people really wouldn't do that. They wouldn't leave and sell their home and go to another place and experience a new life. However, the energy that it takes to do that, and the energy that you get from the joy of you know, experiencing a new neighborhood, even, or a new city, even when it's in the same country, is so vastly superior to being stagnated in a place, maybe the same home, maybe the same apartment, maybe the same community, where a transition has occurred. However, the energy that you've got, and this is why it's really important, I think, sometimes to actually go through your apartment or your home and shake things up, move things around, and get rid of old things and bring in new things. And that new is not necessarily brand new, but you might have found something at a garage sale. You might have found something at Goodwill, or again, the Habitat for Humanity shop, or other places, and you want to shift your style around, shift the energy in a room. The feng shui is real, people. I'm just, you know, put that out there. Feng shui is real.
True.
I mean, it's the energy. There's
true.
the chi in everything, and it's moving around. And I use my pendulum to check various aspects of my room, the energy and the like. And what's fun is I moved one of my wine racks out. I gave it to a friend of mine, and in exchange, he gave me a bookshelf. And I love the energy the change, just that one shift. I moved it off of one wall, moved this bookshelf in, and now I have some of my precious items on that bookshelf. There's not a book on it, by the way, because I have a different bookshelf. But it made a great place to like display things that
the things that are important to you, that you that make you feel good. That when even if you have a frustrating day and you happen to be maybe in a lower vibrational state than is normally Michael J. Ross, you walk in there and all of a sudden you look at that thing, and that frustration or sadness, whatever you're experiencing, shifts you. And then all of a sudden you're at a higher one. Maybe it's like relief or hope or joy. It's like You reach for that better feeling thought, as Abraham Hicks always said, reach for that better feeling thought. And next thing you know, you're shifting yourself on that emotional scale. You're not really doing much other than just looking at that item and it just, I don't know, shifting your focus, shifting your train of thought. Exactly. And one of my favorite books by Dr. Joe Dispenza is Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. Getting ingrained, we're so much in this habituation of what we think that we believe. And so if you're experiencing thoughts of dissatisfaction, well, I go to this job and I don't really like it and all of these other different things, and then we keep attracting the same reality rather than visualizing the job that they desire or what it is that you want in your life, and then allowing yourself to feel those emotions of success in that new job and grateful for that new job or your paycheck or whatever else it is. It's very interesting, and he has in that book lots of different simple exercises that you can do. But when I tell people that, like how you break the habit of being yourself, some people look at me like I'm completely insane. I think, no, when you really shift your energy, and align with those new opportunities, as well as I do, Michael. And when you're in alignment with something that's a higher vibrational frequency, it's just a matter of that match coming to you. It won't be very long. We don't know how long. And so the universe's divine timing before we reach that desired outcome.
Right. And you're not going to attract something if you're not there. If you're not on that frequency, you're not going to attract it in the first place. But you've created an interesting segue here for something we were kind of talking about before the show, which is shifting the energy. We always say, we cannot control other people. However, we can influence them to shift their own energies. We can be an influence. We can be an example for them. And I told you a little quick story, real quick. The gal who was operating the storage facility that I'm in I walked into the office as I was cleaning out my shed. I had a question, and she was in a negative state. She was crying over something. And when I walked up to the counter, I said to myself, okay, Abraham Hicks, let's remember this. Do not, I just heard this piece from her, don't perpetuate the negativity. Don't feed it. Don't give it life, or greater life than it had when you initially had your response. You don't want to do that. So instead of walking up to her and saying, what's wrong, what's the matter, what's going on, which would cause her to relive the situation that caused her the stress, I said, I'm going to take her out of this state that she's in. I'm going to pivot her out of this state really quickly. So I walked up to her and I asked her a question about my account. How can I do this? Right? And then it immediately, she shifted away from that state and focused on the question I had asked her and that task that she had to do. And for our listeners at home, what I'm talking about is we have this tendency to want people we think that them getting through something involves reliving it with you, right? And that's not really the case. That's not what we want to do. We do not want them to perpetuate the perceptions that they had and the feelings caused by those perceptions. We don't want to take that as far as we can take it. No, we don't want to carry on. We want to pivot them in a different direction, because and then help them understand, not at that particular moment, but maybe sometime in the future, you might help them understand why you did what you did. Because really the idea is to, as you said earlier, pivot away from negative thoughts, pivot to a positive thought as quickly as possible, or a neutral thought as quickly as possible. We're stuck in that this happened, why did this happen? You're in that diatribe of negativity. The more energy you give to the negative, the more you're perpetuating not only that perception, but the feelings, and now you're manifesting a greater negativity as a result.
You're right.
And you're going to take it into the next situation, the next connection that you had, the next relational connection, the next place that you go, from one office to another, one home to another, one place to another. It doesn't matter. If you're in that state, you're there. So the best thing to do is to think a different thought. All I was doing was doing before. Just
you're right. And I have a question for you, Michael. Have you ever been stuck in traffic or in line at the grocery store, and you watch because somebody has to they want to get somewhere really quickly, and they'll switch lanes or they'll switch lines, and it just seems like the universe is going to slow them down because they're going to make the next line that they switched into even slower than the one that they were in, or somebody will have a problem with their credit card or whatever, until the point where and it's a teachable moment, really, truly, what I'll do, I sort of sit there, okay, if I'm stuck in traffic, rather than getting frustrated, I'm just like, okay, well, what audio can I listen to? Or I'll do my one-person car karaoke, and I'll be turn that music up and dancing. And I always sort of try to look at it that there's a reason that I needed to be slowed down. And actually, the one day I did get slowed down, and here it was raining pretty hard. And had I been probably a few minutes earlier, the road washed out, and one of the cars that tried to go through, it just all of a sudden, very suddenly, and that car was submerged. That could have been me. And even though it was inconvenient, I had to turn around. I wasn't the one in the water. Sent lots of positive energy that the rescue vehicles were able to get this person out. But you never know where that gift is in that moment of your angels, universe, whatever you want to call it, just said, no, you don't need to be there right now. We got to slow you down because we're actually watching over you.
That's so true. I love the story, though. But we can think of dozens of those times. If we in our audience just put our minds to it, probably something just happened this morning, or will happen this evening, a situation like that. And it happened to me at least 3 times while I was moving my storage shed this weekend, where something prevented me from. I had a full truck of stuff in it, and I couldn't get into the storage facility on the other side to get it unloaded. Or somebody had taken the cart, right? Somebody took the cart I needed to use to get my stuff up, and they were using it all of a sudden. And previously 2 times I had the cart to myself. So I'm thinking to myself, yeah, okay, it's cool. Let me just relax here, and there'll be a period of time. I'll take a few things up that I can take up, and eventually I'll get the cart back. It's a function of staying positive and understanding that there's a different way to see what is going on. And to me, it's a gift. That time is a gift. We're being given that gift, but if we sit there and waste it on negative thoughts, then that is what we're going to get. You get.
Yeah, but I know you, Michael. I know you had a smile on your face when you were doing it, and I know you had a smile in your heart because you're sharing love with that particular individual who was working at the storage facility. And the other part was it made you feel good because not only were you re-gifting the things you no longer needed or repurposing or whatever you were doing with them, you were consolidating, and you knew that there was going to be a really positive outcome in doing so. That there was something so much that brought you joy in that, and even rediscovering. I think when you have things in storage like that, I did the same thing. I opened up. I was looking for a gift to give somebody, and I opened up a trunk that I hadn't been in a very long time. And I always wear a moonstone, and I had a very special moonstone from a friend of mine. And when my house was being remodeled, I took a whole bunch of stuff and I wrapped everything up and I put it in boxes, and I have not been able to find that moonstone in about 6 years. Do you know that when I went in that trunk, sitting in front of the trunk was a plastic container, and I thought, geez, I didn't realize this was here, and had stuff on top of it, of course. And I opened it up, and sure, lo and behold, inside a tiny little miniature jewelry box was my moonstone. So now I get to wear it again. I get to enjoy it again. And I went through and I thought, there were some things that I no longer need, and I can either sell them or gift them, and I came across this beautiful pendant. I thought, I know who would really like this pendant. I mean, it's just little things like that, and so now I can give back to my friend who gave me the beautiful Escala jacket.
It's interesting. How many times has that happened to? I think everybody that listens to this show has had that occur, where you've misplaced something, and a certain period of time goes by, and that is indeterminate. It could be a day, it could be a week, it could be 10 years, it could be 20 years, and you end up finding it at some particular point in time. You thought it was lost. And the question I always ask myself is how much angst did I invest in losing this thing? And I really didn't need it in that moment. But I start thinking, wow, that's unique. Anytime I find something that I've lost, it's a gift. It's a gift from the universe that they're giving it back to me. They're giving something back to me that I had thought that I didn't need at the time, and now I have it. And maybe I've replaced it. Maybe I've replaced it with something. But it's a blessing when you actually find those things. But yeah, I'm very cognizant of the energy I'm putting into the negative energy that I'm investing in something that, in a situation like that, in any episode. Boy, I tell you, in the last 6 months, actually the last year, as I've been continuing to up my spiritual game, spiritual awareness game, I am very, very, very cognizant of all the little nuances of what I'm thinking and how I'm feeling when things happen. And the fun part for me is, because I do make it fun, the fun part is practicing and engaging my own self-empowerment, my own sovereignty. I'm always remembering my sovereignty when things occur. Listen, and it's the same thing. And honestly, that is the one conversation I had. Was the day before, when I had told the young lady I was moving out, and she was talking about her mother and some other things, and cancer, and going through chemo and some of the things like that. And I'm sitting there, and I had to tell her, I said, I'm not looking to interfere with any of your religious affiliations or beliefs. All I'm going to simply tell you is that you create your reality in every moment, and that in doing so, it happens because of the way that you're perceiving things. So if you perceive things in a negative way, then that is going to lead to negative feelings and emotions. It's just automatic. So allowing somebody else to pull your strings or dictate how you feel, someone or something outside of you, is a relinquishment of your own sovereignty, literally. Complaining about something is relinquishing your own sovereignty, because it's making yourself a victim of whatever you're complaining about. And this nuance goes down to the nth degree. It's like, it's the minutia that really to pay attention to, the things that you allow yourself to complain about, the things that you allow yourself to become upset about that don't mean anything in the grand scheme of 24 hours, right? I used to have a 24-hour rule. I still do. However, I've really compressed it to several hours now instead of 24. But the rule is very simple. If something has occurred, someone said something to you, whatever, and it's not going to mean anything in 24 hours, why give it any investment of energy? Why allow it to make you feel differently? Just let it go. But now I've compressed that to a couple of hours now, and simply said, and even moments, what relevance does this have to me at this particular point in time? So somebody said something that kind of rubbed me the wrong way. Doesn't mean they're wrong. I don't need to be right. So let me just back off and change the subject. And
exactly.
Nobody notices. Nobody notices
that you back off. I get it. I totally get it.
You're having a disagreement with somebody or about something, or I wanted to go here. No, I wanted to go there. And you just give up yourself. You give up fighting or trying to get your way, and then you ask a question that's completely different. And the person you're talking to doesn't have any recognition of or under a memory of what was going on. It's just we have this automatic reaction to fight back.
Right.
And we don't know we're doing it. It's just an automatic subconscious reaction. Right? So it's a way for us to be happier. I know for me, I'm a lot happier because I'm making these little momentary shifts to maintain positivity. And it's very nuanced, and it works, and you feel so good. You keep the joy flowing. You keep the self-love flowing, the love for life, love for everything, because you're not allowing the little nitty-gritty to get in the way. The little sand to get in the cog in the wheel. That's the part that really slows things down. Those little granules of sand, those little those little things that occur.
No, you're absolutely right, Michael. And when you let go of resistance, which is what you're talking about, and resistance comes in trying to control every detail. There's so many things that I can't control in my day. The only thing I can control is myself and how I feel, and being in that loving state and being in a state of trust. And whatever's thrown at me, I just try to remind myself, trust, like there is a greater plan here. Just allow and create and allow that flow to go. And that's when things manifest in my life. And I will tell you, Michael, when you were speaking, I don't know, I got this really interesting visual in my head of a kaleidoscope, and I was sitting there thinking about the original kaleidoscopes that were made with shards of glass, broken pieces of glass.
True.
And they were put at the bottom of a tube, and lenses were put at the top. And I'm not really sure all the mechanisms of how it works, but as you twist the lenses, those little broken pieces all come into this beautiful prismatic alignment. And it's just beautiful. But it's only there for a moment. And so when we realize, like, okay, even if I'm going to turn the top of that kaleidoscope just a little bit, I'm going to trust that even though this was really beautiful, I'm going to see something, wow, look at these colors I never saw before. And that's sort of the way life is. We get these twists and turns and these challenges, and it's just, how do you go back to that state of, okay, I'm just going to let go. And as Wayne Dyer used to say, let go, let God, whatever God is for you, and allow whatever is meant to unfold, and trust that something magnificent is just around the corner. And I think what my biggest lesson is, and I'd love for you to give your input, but when I try to control my life too much, it does not work. It doesn't work. It just does not work. I can come up with a plan, and I can work with the people that are in my world and say these are my goals, but ultimately, at a certain point, I don't micromanage anybody. They're all grown-up adults, and they have their own path and things to choose, and we come together. And as you said, when you let go of the need to try to control or in a disagreement, and just remind yourself, no, that's really not worth it. That's not important. It's just that little groove in my day, and I'm skipping to the next one because it's got a better beat.
I like that. It has a better
right?
beat. I love that.
It has a better beat.
It really resonates with me. It has a better beat. Too much control. Yeah, I agree with you 110%. That's, when I find myself looking, and now I'm, again, much more cognizant of when I am attempting to control things. Generally, it's about the how. Generally, what I'm looking to control, I've just noticed this, is the how of something. And if there's one thing that I've done in the last 6 months more than anything else, is I've given up on the how. I've literally turned that over to, my guides, my higher self, source, whatever. And I know that I will get the highest outcome from whatever it is that I'm doing. And I know for 40 years in my business I've been doing this, where I've been turning over the how things get done. Because when you focus too much on how to control the whole process, we are taught, when you manufacture a process, you have to manufacture a product, you have to control every step of the process in order to get the optimal result, right? The optimal product that you're looking for. Well, when you start doing that in your life, it becomes problematic. It becomes problematic because everything you're looking to control about the how is beyond your control, right? You can't just say, I'm going to get this particular machine, and when I get this machine, it's going to produce this particular quality of product, and that quality of product goes into this next thing, and then and before I know it, I've got the best thing. I've got the product I'm looking for. And you start applying that to your life, and all of a sudden things fall apart, and you wonder why.
Right.
right? You wonder why you're so frustrated. You can't be happy when you're attempting to control everything. You get into a relationship. Right. You're in a relationship with somebody, and you want to control the whole outcome. You want to control everything. You want to get married, and if you're younger, you want to have this relationship, and the whole idea, the whole basis of the relationship is to get married someday. So you turn around and throw away a decent relationship because you don't see an immediate marriage in your future, right? In the next or two, you throw away a good relationship. And I've always told people the basis for a relationship is to grow. It's you growing personally. You're looking at it from a different situation where you're looking at the outer circumstances. But the idea is for you to become a better person, a better human, a more enlightened soul, so to speak, is the reason why you have relational connections with people, whether they're romantic or otherwise. That's how we grow, right? So you fail at one relationship, you fail at another relationship. You got to ask yourself, okay, is it failure? What am I learning from this thing? It's not really failure. If I don't learn something about myself, then it is a failure because I really need to learn something. I want to take something from this that can help me be a better person, be a better partner in the next relationship that I have, right? So the issue is that a lot of people, that's not the way that Hollywood or television or anything else happens to present the concept of relationship. There are, Hallmark movies exist for a reason because they're formulaic.
I know. They always have a happy ending. I love it.
They got great happy endings. However,
I know it doesn't work that way.
Of they can lead you to believe that every relationship will have that kind of ending, right?
Yeah, no, you're right.
Sometimes they don't, but there is a way that a particular relationship, and sometimes even if what you learn is that you were too controlling, even if you learn is that you were trying to shape somebody into your idea of what you wanted in a relationship, and became very frustrated and controlling, your perception of a relationship was negative because you were attempting to make that person into something that you yourself had, some concept that you had in your mind, and that person wasn't fitting into that little round hole. They were a square, so to speak, and they wouldn't fit in the round hole, so you became frustrated, and you dumped the relationship because of that. It doesn't mean it was a bad relationship. It just means that you allowed your perceptions to harbor negative, to incite, evoke negative feelings about that particular individual, and it was all judgment and no forgiveness and no gratitude and anything else for that matter. I wake up every day that I have the relationship that I have now for 23 years this Friday, by the way. That's my 23 years.
Oh, congratulations. Congratulations. That's wonderful. No, that's amazing. Yeah. And Michael, I have to just say, because we're almost out of time, but I have a new title for your next book, and it's going to be called The Moose Poop Pen Paradigm, and shifting your perspective on life. Because as you were just sharing that last little bit, I thought, that should be a gift for everybody. Like, how do you shift your perspective on something? You look at something and you find that as you've got this new writing instrument that writes smoothly, and you have over the course of your life, you've shifted your perspective on relationship. You shifted your perspective through the books you've read, and it's consistent effort, and you transform. And you can transform anything negative or is the opposite of positive into an opportunity. And I just love that. Thank you for sharing about your pen. And I wish you and Sandy, maybe you'll even write her card out with that special
pen. I will post
pen.
it. I'll post it on Instagram. You can share it. My moose poop pen. What a great! Listen, I'm so grateful that we had that trip. I'm grateful that we have the show, and I'm grateful for our listenership. That people listening.
Thank you, all of you.
Let me say this in our last minute, just the little bit of admin, that anybody listening to the show on PRN FM can, for the first time and doesn't know this, can go to the podcast, anywhere there's podcasts, Spotify, you name it, Audible, Apple, and look at Connect to Love. Connect, the number 2, and LOVE. Connect to Love, and find this show and listen to this show again, or listen to our archives of shows from the past. 3 years. It's an incredible ride, and I just want people to know that they can share. If they've heard something here that someone else can benefit from, that they can share in that way. They can share the episode with them. So what have you got to say in the last 30 seconds, young lady?
No, I just wanted to say thank you. Thank you, Michael. I'm so grateful to you and to all of our audience members. And any new listeners, welcome. We hold you in such high regard and just hold you in our hearts, and sending you love from my heart, and I know Michael's heart to yours. And
Absolutely.
Enjoy a beautiful week.
Thank you.